Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, it is supposed to be Poetry Thursday, but I thought I would forego it because I want to talk about a book, graphic novel, comic that I read recently that I find far more interesting. But I will continue Poetry Thursday next week. Should be tons of fun. So what do I want to talk about instead? I want to talk about a comic that focuses on family and searching for your family. I am referring to the Sandman Volume 7, Brief Lives by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Jill Thompson and Vince Locke, with a foreword by Neil Gaiman and an afterword by Peter Straub. Pretty interesting cover. You got Dream in a body of water rowing with two people in his boat. Not quite sure who those people are, but they seem interesting. It's a pretty cool cover. Lots of good art in this, and I'll talk about that later. But I've talked about Neil Gaiman before. He's a pretty exciting author. I don't need to go into more detail about it. You can watch my other videos on his work to see what I've said about him. But what is the story so far with the Sandman series? Well, as I've said many other times, Dream was kidnapped, and he took revenge on his captors. Eventually, reunited with the Endless, and set is in the process of really setting his kingdom in order, his dream kingdom. He's interfered with the lives of mortals, and we've seen bits and pieces of his past, including the fact that he had a son named Orpheus, and they had a bit of a falling out. And when Orpheus was truly in need after being beheaded and yet still alive, Dream turned his back on his son, and they haven't spoken for thousands of years, unfortunately. So that's where we're at in this series. So without further ado, let's talk about Brief Lives. I'll do a little summary, a little analysis, and we will move on from there. Brief Lives begins with Orpheus. Remember him from Volume 6? He is currently beheaded, but still alive. He's in a shrine being protected by some guardians who watch over the shrine always and forever. And he's been there for thousands of years, currently just talking about, life and whatnot. He's not really much of a factor in the beginning of the story. But the story then shifts to Delirium, one of the Endless, roaming about the earth. She is currently very unhappy, and she's proclaiming that she misses her family. So Desire shows up and is like, "Hey, sister, what's the problem?" And Delirium says that she misses her brother, Destruction. Destruction was mentioned a bunch of times throughout the first 6 volumes, but never shown directly. It's only been mentioned that he left the family, and the Endless are kind of sad about it, but they're not searching him because it was his choice, and they see it as his choice. And that's what Desire tells Delirium, that she's better off not thinking about Destruction because he left the family. And so Delirium goes to the other Endless to see if they'll help. Despair had a pretty strong relationship with Destruction, but even she says that she would rather leave him be because he made his choice. Delirium then goes to Dream. Dream is in the process of going through a breakup with someone who we don't see. He's pretty down in the dumps about it, which is kind of hilarious given his godlike nature. But he meets with Delirium, and he agrees to go on this quest to find Destruction, although he notes that it's probably fruitless because he left and he probably doesn't want to be found, and they're better off just leaving him be. So they make their way into the mortal realm. They're kind of at odds in this quest because Delirium just rambles on incoherently at times, annoying Dream. And Dream is super serious, self-serious at times, kind of insufferable to be around, and kind of mean to Delirium in the process. And at one point they even go their separate ways before reuniting when Dream apologizes to Delirium. So they're going through this quest, meeting up with past friends and paramours of Destruction. Unfortunately, none of them can seem to know where Destruction is. He's pretty much gone off the grid and isn't trying to be found at this point in time. So they turn to Destiny, one of the other Endless, and he informs Delirium and Dream that they need to find an oracle. He warns against finding Destruction, as you know, all the other Endless do, but Dream and Delirium don't listen to him, and so Dream decides that he has to go back and talk to Orpheus. Dream and Orpheus have a conversation that we do not see, and in the process, Orpheus tells Dream where Destruction is. So there's a reunion. They finally see Destruction again, who is very happy to see his Endless siblings. But he's pretty clear that he doesn't want to return to the family. In fact, he's preparing to journey into other realms. He notes that he quit being Destruction because the humans were more than capable of doing Destruction on their own, and no one person needs to be the entire being of Destruction. So Destruction thought he could strike it out on his own. Death even told him that in terms of like destiny, anybody can know what destiny knows, and because of that, no one's beholden to their own responsibilities or their own identity as a member of the Endless. And Delirium and Dream are saddened by this, but they ultimately decide to let Destruction go because it is his choice. Delirium and Dream then go their separate ways. Destruction gives Delirium her dog, or his dog, as a guardianship sort of thing, protectorship sort of thing. So she'll always have something to remember Destruction by. And then Dream goes back to Orpheus. It turns out that he promised a boon to Orpheus in terms of in return for helping him find Destruction. And so what Orpheus wants is to be killed. He's done with life. He's been beheaded for thousands of years, and he's had enough of it. And reluctantly, Dream kills Orpheus. He then heads back to the dream realm and decides that he'll get to his responsibilities again, but he'll do it on his own time, which is what Destruction was getting at. So it's clear that Dream learned something in the process. He's shown like looking at a reflection of Orpheus when he was alive, sort of regretting the fact that they parted ways and became estranged. So it ends on a bit of a sad note, but also kind of hopeful because they found Destruction and they learned something in the process. And that's where Brief Lives ends. In terms of analysis, one of the big themes with this story is that of family. And what you would do for family. The whole plot is kicked off because Delirium misses one of her family members, Destruction. So she's going to different family members in search of a way to find her brother that she misses very deeply. They all warn her against finding her brother because he made his choice long ago, and they've decided to adhere to it. But the Dream decides to go along with Delirium because there's a sense of kinship, a sense of family with the two of them, and so that pretty much drives the plot forward. Like Dream is very mean to Delirium, but he ultimately comes back to her multiple times in order to help her in her quest. A responsibility towards family, and deep down, Dream wants to find Destruction even if he doesn't admit it himself. So there's also the idea of what you're willing to do for family, which I just mentioned. At one point, Dream becomes very discouraged in his quest, very sort of reflecting on how his relationships haven't been so strong, and he drops to the ground and he doesn't really want to get up. So Delirium, what she does is she acts normal, which pains her very greatly, and she works to encourage Dream and motivate him so that he'll continue on the quest and also get out of the funk he's in. And it seems to work. And Dream is also very grateful to Delirium because he recognizes that for her to act normal is very hard for her. So it creates a sort of understanding between the two. She's willing to go to great lengths in order to help Dream and get him to be to a better place. And that's part of what family is. But another part of what family is letting your family do what they need to do. You can't really interfere with what they're hoping to get out of life. That happens with destruction. Delirium and Dream want to find destruction, and Delirium and Dream even encourages destruction to come back and join the Endless. However, destruction doesn't want that. He's at a different stage in life. He's fine with going out into the world and finding something else. He just doesn't feel an attachment to his identity as one of the Endless anymore. And this is interesting because at the end of the story, they let him go his separate way, and understanding that they have to let him do this because you can try to hold on to family forever, but if they're not happy, that you have to recognize that they're going to do something that makes them happy. In this case, it's destruction visiting other realms. So I think that's an interesting theme that Gaiman capitalizes in his work. I also like how Neil Gaiman adds more to Dream, building up more of his character, establishing, not only his flaws, but also the good stuff about him, that he's loyal to family, and he's willing to help Delirium when everyone else is like, no, I'm not going to do this. And so it really makes Dream a more well-rounded character. Gaiman isn't afraid to show his flaws. He keeps people at a distance, which is bad for his relationships, and it shows why he keeps getting romantically rejected, unfortunately. He's discouraged from continuing on in his quest, and he just stops, which is just like, it seems kind of out of character, but also very in character, because eventually, he's going to be... he's going to be completely drained in any sense of when he's going along a quest, and he's also dealing with these personal issues. And one of those personal issues is his relationship to his son Orpheus. He turned his back on Orpheus as Orpheus kind of rejected him in thousands of years ago, and they've kind of been not in contact since then. And when they do finally come in contact, Orpheus asks his dad to kill him, which is not good. Like, no one wants to be the one to kill their son, especially in Greek mythology. So Dream has to deal with that and has to reflect on the fact that he's not been a good father. And it's especially interesting when you consider that he's a new father to that Daniel kid I've been talking about in this series. And so how's that going to work out? That's very fascinating. And I do want to read more so that I can find out if he's going to have a better relationship with Daniel than he had with Orpheus. There's another question of, are the Endless necessary? Is death necessary? Is despair necessary? Is destruction necessary? Is dream necessary? Destruction would argue that no. Human beings are capable of doing destruction and dreaming and dying without the help of the Endless. And that the Endless are just mere patterns that exist in the world. They may have a lot of power, but they aren't really needed by humanity, which is, kind of an existential crisis in and of itself. I like how Gaiman introduces that idea. It's kind of an antithesis to what he said in the first volume, because Dream was having a sort of a crisis in understanding his function in the world after he was kidnapped, and Death took him along and was like, oh, hey, if you just do your responsibilities, maybe you'll find some meaning in that. But Destruction argues that you don't need to do your responsibilities. You can just travel throughout the various realms, live your life, and the human beings will take care of themselves. So it's kind of differing opinions there, and I like how Destruction, is kind of presents that opposite thought, especially if you were paying close attention to what happened in the first volume. So a lot of good stuff from Gaiman there. The last thing that I want to talk about is the great art in this volume, which you've probably seen me post all around here. I really enjoy it because it's a consistency throughout this series, that all the art is marvelous and kind of unusual. The thing that stands out most to me is when Dream is in Delirium's realm, which I'll post, right here. Delirium's realm is kind of bizarre. It's a surreal, postmodern wasteland, sort of. And Dream's presence in there, you can tell he doesn't belong, but Delirium belongs. And I like that dichotomy. And it's just one part of a greater sort of catalog of beautiful art, not only in this volume but in previous volumes. So it's not only is Neil Gaiman doing a good job, but all the artists he's working with are doing some beautiful work. So really adds to my enjoyment of the series as a whole. And so those are my thoughts on Brief Lives, Volume 7 of the Sandman series, a great series. I actually bought this one because my local library didn't have the next volume in the series. I'm going to have to continue buying the next volumes, and which is fine because this is really good, and I really like the art. So it seems like it's fine to have. So if you read this volume before, or you want to comment on it, say something about my review, absolutely do that below. We can have a discussion. I would love to hear from you. Definitely gonna recommend this for everyone out there. It's one of the non-skippable books in the series, so absolutely go check it out once you make your way there. It should be fun. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we can get more people aware of the Sandman series. It's pretty good. And in the meantime, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and family estrangement travels. Farewell.